The big news this morning surrounding Ukraine. Reports that Donald Trump has spoken with Vladimir Putin and he's agreed to start negotiations on ending the war, quote, immediately. Cue accusations expectedly from the European Union leaders that this is an act of betrayal against Ukraine. And our own Defence Secretary John Healey has said this morning there will be no talks about Ukraine without Ukraine. Big moment.
I think this is one of the pivotal moments in the post-war history of Europe. It is an extraordinary moment. I've spoken to past and former defence ministers and Americans and all that. Everybody agrees this is a huge, huge moment in our history.
I mean, we've been talking for several weeks, really, on the podcast about the position that Labour now find themselves in with the Donald Trump presidency, having to hedge its bets who to go with, US or closer to Europe. I mean, it really matters now, doesn't it, on this?
It matters particularly about this because this is the moment you can't really fudge much longer. If Donald Trump is determined to do a deal over the head of President Zelensky and Kiev, and if, as his Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth said yesterday, there will be no American military support for Ukraine after a deal, it's all going to have to be done by Western European countries. And if also at the same time, effectively America is saying to Europe, we are interested in China and the Far East, we are no longer interested in you, we are leaving, goodbye, then that is a very, very dangerous moment for Britain as well as for other Western European countries. Whose troops are going to be there as a deterrence in rump Ukraine if this is imposed on Ukraine? And by the way, I think rump Ukraine will be a very politically turbulent place. Will Zelensky survive this? I just don't know. So a turbulent, dangerous place. And we're going to be sending British troops, British men, British women into harm's way. And at the moment, they are not properly armed. They are not properly prepared. The British army is far too small. And this is all landing on the desks of the Treasury and the Prime Minister and people up and down Whitehall round about now. What are we going to?
That's the Strategic
Defence Review. What are we going to do about defence? There is no money. We have to find money. We have to do something. So it's a really, really important moment.
I mean, the NATO chief, Mark Rutte, has been out this morning trying to encourage members to up their contributions to somewhere towards that 5% that Donald Trump's asking for. I mean, we're nowhere near it, but is this signs that NATO is really fraying, actually?
NATO is fraying and things are moving extraordinarily fast. I mean, only yesterday, our own Secretary of State for Defence, John Healey, who is a good guy, I think, he was saying that we have to keep arming Ukraine so that we can force Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table. Well, Vladimir Putin doesn't need to be forced to the negotiating table. He's ambling towards it with a huge grin on his face and his friend Donald Trump's phone ringing inside his breast pocket.
Do you see any world in which this conflict is settled where Ukraine gets to keep all of its pre-invasion territory?
No. I think there were three things really that Ukraine has been wanting. The first, obviously, is a complete sovereign and free Ukraine, including Crimea. That is not going to happen. The second was, well, in that case, at least a Ukraine, which is most of current Ukraine, inside NATO, inside the United Nations. Well, after what Mr. Hegseth said yesterday, that is not going to happen. It's completely off the table. But the third thing is, OK, we don't get this, we don't get that, but at least let's have the rest of Ukraine, rump Ukraine, protected under the American umbrella so that we can feel secure. And now we know that's not going to happen either.